Beyond.
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 Beyond. Beyond.
Beyond.
Beyond. Beyond.
Beyond. Stop it. Stop it. Enough of that. All right, this is Podcast Beyond, episode 408. I'm Max Scoville. Joining me, Andrew Goldfarb.
Hey.
Brian Altano.
Brah, brah.
And Vince Ingenito.
Beyond.
Marty Sleva is rattlesnaking around the wild west of America.
Where is he? Is he on a video game adventure?
I don't even know where he is or why he's there.
Yeah, I think I don't think we can say.
We probably can't
Really?
say.
Yeah.
But,
He's in
We have to kill
underground
everyone
bunker.
listening if we say.
Yeah.
Side note, I took one of those trips once where I was gone for 2 days and I couldn't tell anyone where I was. And
Yeah.
it's a very uncomfortable feeling. I know it's part of our jobs,
Yeah.
but it's also a little weird to be like, my location is under embargo.
Yeah,
Like, I have family and friends. Like, what if I got hurt?
People are also really weird about it because like they can't say it, but then you look at their stuff and they're tweeting out pictures and it's like very obvious.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
you got to play the game.
Yeah.
We had a big fight over who sat in Marty's seat. I won.
that wasn't a big fight.
It was a big for me. I mean, have you seen my life? For me, it was a big fight. That was the closest thing I've ever been
It's
in.
a big fight. We've all been there, though. Anyway, we're gonna have kind of a light show today because we have PAX coming up this weekend. Brian and I fly out Thursday afternoon.
Yep, I fly out Thursday morning.
Yeah.
Okay. Vince, are you going to PAX?
No, I am not. I get some rest.
You get
Oh,
a nice
yeah,
weekend
you
off.
get to do some naps
Yep.
prime.
Yeah.
Yeah. Naps Prime.
So we actually
Yeah.
have a meetup. We're gonna have a few kind of meetups.
We have a couple, yeah. So the in order, the first thing is on Friday night. We're co-sponsoring a thing with Square Enix for Lara Croft Go.
Yep.
So it's the IGN Lara Croft Go party. That one I believe is at the Hard Rock and should be fun. There's going to be poutine and live snakes at that party.
That was a
Eugene,
great.
where's Mitch Dyer?
That was a
Yeah.
great meeting
he'll
to
be there.
have.
Actually, I heard it was live poutine and edible snakes.
Yeah, so you don't know which is which. They look
Well,
the same. One is snakes covered in gravy and one is poutine.
Like live snakes covered in
Yeah,
gravy?
live
or
snakes.
You
dead
got it.
cooked
You
snakes?
reach in, you don't know what you're getting.
They're really annoyed by it, by
And
the
edible
way.
snakes are not mutually exclusive. I just want you to know.
If you put gravy on a snake, he is not a happy snake.
No, and then the cheese curds on top of it, man.
Yeah, he's just.
not great.
Well, those just kind of
No
fall
good.
off.
Not great.
Anyway.
Not a good snake appetite.
All right. Then the following night we have another meetup thing that's happening.
That is at Amber, the Indian restaurant, and that one is So it's actually you had to get tickets, so that one is actually technically sold out. Hopefully there ends up being a little bit of extra room, but yeah, that one we put tickets out. We were tweeting about it about 3 weeks ago, and I believe that one is technically sold out.
And I will mention that you don't need a PAX badge to get in either of these. If you
Correct.
you just have to actually
Yeah.
be in that area.
Yep, and these are
Which I actually had to field that question because somebody was like, "I'm not going to be in Seattle. Can I be there?" And I was like, "I don't think so because I don't have a machine that warps."
we're gonna periscope you in.
Well, if you go out in the desert, eat the right stuff on the ground, you might be
right.
there.
That's true.
Get on that gravy snake.
yeah.
Material form.
Yeah, there will be live snakes covered in peyote.
Cool. So
no,
speaking of going
so-
out in the desert eating weird stuff, Vince, the reason we have you here.
But I'm gonna say one more quick thing about PAX. Can I say one more quick thing about PAX?
What?
Every time we go to a show like this, we get these tweets that are like, "Oh man, just saw Brian Altano, too scared to say hi."
Oh, yeah.
Don't do that.
Yeah,
Like
come
if you
say hi.
if you can't make either of these meetups, we'll be here on the show all week. Come say hi. Like seriously, don't feel weird about coming up and saying hi.
I was wearing
We're all
my
lucky.
T-shirt that said "Don't f***ing say hi."
What was that picture
Ever.
that someone tweeted out of you? Like I yelled his name and he turned around and it was like you looking real angry from real far
I was
away.
on a balcony during Comic-Con, and it looks like I'm a bouncer of a club.
Just whatever you do when you meet Brian Altano for the first time, don't go too far trying to make a good joke. Or like a crazy
Yeah,
joke.
just say
'Cause
hi.
Just
say
yeah,
hi.
because I made that mistake. I came into the office as a freelancer once, and you were, I don't know what your role was at that time. It was the first time we'd ever actually met, and I was talking about some piece that I think you wanted. You were going to help me make,
Yeah.
or I needed to do for you, and I made some super inappropriate, dark, like joke involving corpses or something, and you were like, that's kind of weird, and just like ignored it and kept going, and I was like, well, I ruined my chance of
Well,
being
I
friends
was-
with Brian Altano forever.
I always think about it like if I'm always driving 70 on the highway, I want somebody to go 90 so I can be like, that's really fast. And then you get pulled over for it, and I'm like,
All right.
Okay, sorry, Metal Gear.
Anyway, yeah, Vince, you just reviewed Metal Gear Solid 5,
sure
The
did.
Phantom Pain, and you gave it a 10 out of 10. Not a perfect score, but the highest score you can give it. Thank you for
Yeah.
correcting me about that granular little...
I wasn't trying to correct you. I was trying to save myself from like death.
Right. No, this has been the big thing for years at IGN, right? Where people
Yeah.
are like, "Oh, so the game's perfect?" Well, no, it is the highest score we can possibly give it.
Yeah.
But
which
it's a
means
perfect.
a
The
10.
game might not be perfect, but the score is perfect.
So yeah, so this is a discussion I had
You
on.
can't go higher than an 11.
So this is what this is the discussion
the
that I
score.
had
Criticism.
with someone.
Yeah.
No, you're right. This is what I had with someone on Twitter, and they were like, "Look, you can say 10 out of 10 isn't perfect all you want, but 10 out of 10 is a perfect score, and if it's not perfect, then you shouldn't give it that."
It's
And
a
I was
perfect
like,
score, but not a perfect game. Yeah.
right. So this is the way I try to explain it to this person, and they
Great medium for such a debate. Too,
oh
by
yeah,
the way.
Twitter's perfect for that. Let me tell you.
I would give Twitter a 6 out of 10 for debate.
It's like arguing with the hiccups. You get like a sentence and a half in, and you're just like,
So what I told them, I was like, in math, 10 is the highest value in a set of numbers ending in 10. In criticism, in criticism, hold on, real good.
Yeah.
In criticism,
for God's sake,
numbers,
Metal Gear Solid 5. Let's talk about that.
Okay.
Not arguing about fractions
You
on Twitter.
started it,
I'm
Max.
sorry.
No game is perfect, and no highest score on any review scale means perfection.
right? Because
Brian, I think
ratings
you're
are just
perfect.
abstractions
I don't- yeah, thanks.
of of other words.
So obviously, everyone has already read Vince's perfect review on the internet. About
Most scrolled to the score.
Perfect, flawless, immaculate game.
Yeah.
But everyone else gave it a high score too, so it's totally not your fault. You know,
That's
everyone thinks it's perfect. It's a perfect game, best game ever made, great game, real good. Some
Yeah.
people are probably gonna replay
Damn
it.
it, Max.
The Phantom Pain. Like, tell us a little bit about it. Obviously, people should have read some reviews right now, but we're not going to spoil anything.
So to paint the picture a little bit, just backtrack a tiny bit.
Sure.
What is your process of, like, reviewing a game like this? Like you obviously know it's one of the biggest games of the year. You get a copy a week ago, 2 weeks ago, and then you spend how many hours a day?
Well, this game was unique in that there was a review event for this game. So like to talk about like the process is a little bit rough in terms of this game, but let me tell you the process. I can't speak to the process of Metal Gear per se, like because it was a little bit different. But the process in general, is that we get a game some amount of time in advance, which, by the way, increasingly is a shorter and shorter length of time as things have gone on. I remember I used to get weeks with a game before having to render a verdict, and now sometimes it's like, hey, here's The Witcher 3. And like, to be clear, CD Projekt Red is ahead of the curve in this. They were very good about it. But like, they're like, yeah, here's the game like a week and a half before it comes out. And like, that might be a lot of time for a smaller game, but
Right.
for a game like The Witcher, it's not necessarily tons of time. Enough, but not tons. So then it's a grind. Then it's basically I tell Sam, who's our managing editor here at IGN.com, if you guys don't know, I'm like, Sam, tell everyone to leave me alone so that I can literally go home and do nothing but like Undertaker myself up in bed and start playing and then do this and go back to sleep.
So it's an all-day thing for you.
Yeah, when I played, when I had more time for Dragon Age, I had about 2.5 weeks for Dragon Age, so I was able to live a little bit more reasonably. But like The Witcher 3 that was a week of like 16-hour days.
you know,
you
it's very fair you compare it to a professional wrestler.
Yeah.
Because I think that reviewing a game of that scale is just like, your body's not meant to do that.
Yeah, it's not.
I remember when I was working with Adam Sessler, he was reviewing Grand Theft Auto 5, and it was a similar deal where it's like, we had X amount of time to play this, and he just disappeared, and he came back, and I was like, so how's the game? He's like, the human body is not meant to sit for such long amounts of time. And I was like, and then he went to talk about fiber. He always wanted to get us to get sponsored by Metamucil, because he's like, when you sit in one spot, the food doesn't move around. Anyway,
that's interesting.
Yeah, no, it's like that is. I'm amazed that you can do that. Like you've done some big games this year, yeah.
Yeah, it's a challenge. I mean, I enjoy it, and it's like I think for sure, like when people say like, "Oh, writing about video games, what a great, what a dream job. You just get to sit there and play video games all day and write about them." And first of all, that's not necessarily true, right? There's a lot more to the job, but just the act of sitting there and playing it, like people underestimate, I think, the amount of it takes a very specific kind of mind to sit there for 16 hours in a day without stopping and
literally
play.
bring your work home with you, because you have to, because there aren't enough hours in the day.
Yeah.
If you do it any other way.
That's right.
So all things considered, you're playing 16 hours a day. I think that would probably lesser men would have been like, I can't, or I'm not. I hate this, or they're angry and they find things to nitpick. But you walked out of there going 10 out of 10.
Yeah. And that's a hard thing. But it's in the case of Metal Gear, that I think should, if anything, that should be a testament to how how good it is and how much I enjoyed it. That that said, like you said, you have to find a way as a professional at this. Like you have to find a way to separate. I've been doing this for 16 hours and there's nothing fun left about it for me because I've been playing it for 16 hours straight.
Right.
And doing even the most fun thing for 16 hours straight stops being fun at that point.
Right.
But you have to just learn to disseminate that, like, and you have to put mechanisms in place for yourself as a critic to deal with that. Like for me, it's always a journal. It's always like writing like, this is what was great, this was what was bad, and then by the end of the day, by the 16th hour,
Dear
I've forgotten all the
Diary,
good
there
stuff.
are so many cute boys in this game. They all have cool eye patches and weird
curly hair.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, but it's like you have to remind yourself at the end of the day of 16 hours when you're only remembering the bad stuff. This is all the good stuff that happened today.
Now let's get into the game a little bit. Like
Please.
I've been sort of really wanting to play this game, and it's that kind of odd thing where you're like, it's like when you gotta, it's like Ben Stiller with the donut in Zoolander, where you're just sort of like looking at it, you don't really want it. You're like, oh, do I want to eat it or do I want to not eat it? I want to wait on it. I kind of read your review like almost like I was watching a scary movie, just kind of being like, oh, do I want to find out more? Is it going to affect my expectations? You talked a lot about stuff that I'm sort of scared of. Like you talked about how there's not a lot of like Kojima-esque story here.
Yeah, so this has become one of the major. I mean, I don't want to say that anything I've ever written is a talking point for anyone in this world, but I mean, like, you know,
It is in our world.
I guess in our world it is, right? Yeah. So, but yeah, that's something that people have asked me a lot about. Is that what I had to say about the story? Now, something that some people have pointed out, and it's true. I am infamously harsh on story content in games. I try to hold them, and that's because I try to hold them to the same standard that I would hold a good book or a good film.
That's good, yeah.
Because I believe in games that much that if they're going to make a serious attempt to tell a story, then I'm going to level the highest level of quality.
And that's really important, by the way, because that's people are constantly saying take video games more seriously, treat them like movies and TV shows. They should be art on the same pedestal as everything else. And you're going totally. And that's why I'm going to rip this thing apart or that thing apart because it's not where it should be yet.
Yeah, and as the medium matures, so does the criticism.
Yeah.
Like that's like a more serious art form requires more serious analysis.
Yeah. Absolutely. And that said, you know, Metal Gear Phantom Pain, it does not have a poor story, and I certainly didn't call it poor in my review. What it is compared to other Metal Gear games is a little scarce. Like if the last game that you played in the series was 4, which I love 4, and I even love the story beats that it tells. But man, I mean, you can barely play that game for more than a half an hour at a time without being interrupted for like 5 to 10 minutes.
Right. There was an infographic going around the other day of. Have you guys seen this?
No, I haven't actually.
It's the Metal Gear franchise and amount of cutscenes and how many times there's a cutscene, how often there's cutscenes, and how long the cutscenes are on average. And it's amazing to go through that and then see your review, which was sort of like that's takes a back seat to gameplay.
Yeah, and that's. For some people, I understand who love that about Metal Gear, that might be like a really huge minus.
Yeah.
I noted it as a minus on my review because it's a criticism that I couldn't help but make. That said, to me, was it a massive minus? No, because to me, I'm a gameplay first kind of guy, and I want the story to serve the gameplay. I don't want the story to get in the way of the gameplay or be the star over the gameplay. That's just how that's how I critique, and that's what I love. So for me, it was actually kind of in a weird way a plus. But that said, I didn't feel like it was responsible of me to not point out that this might be a problem for some people because some people really love that style of game.
Because I did the awful IGN commenter thing or general audience thing of clicking in your review and doing the first thing everyone does. Scroll right down to the score. So I go down to the score. I see the 10, which I kind of knew about because I work here.
Right.
But then I wanted to read your bullet points and your final paragraph, and then go back upwards. It's just really stupid. I don't do that with anything else in the world. I don't watch the end of a movie or eat dessert and then have the main course. But I got to the end and I saw the minus, and it said sparse story. Sparse story. And I said the same thing to myself. Like that's kind of a plus because to me, Metal Gear kind of feels like. By the time like I was preaching the gospel of Arrested Development, and there were 2 episodes in a season 3, I'm like, you gotta watch this show. And by then the showrunners were writing a show that was specifically for people who got all the inside jokes and beats. And I would tell people to watch the show. It's so funny, you gotta check it out. And they'd sit down and be like, I don't get it. And that's how I feel with Metal Gear. So to hear that like this is I can jump in on this and be totally okay excites me personally. But as for people who are crazy about the story, I can see why they're kind of in arms about that.
For me, that was those two words, like sparse story, and you talking about the sparse story is the most exciting words in your review, because it's like, and we're on opposite sides of that, I guess. But
I'm
it's
so torn.
interesting.
I'm so totally ambivalent here, because like I love the universe set up by Kojima. Like I love the setting. I've kind of been increasingly frustrated with the amount of just the density of it. You know, like my favorite was probably 2, I guess. And it was kind of because I was invested in the first one a ton, and the 2 kind of expanded on that. And that being said, there's still like a ton of stuff he just beats you over the head with, and then he just kind of leaves it hanging. And then 3 is a different thing entirely, and then 4 just doesn't really. It's like, what are you saying? What are you getting at? And like I played 4 kind of after, like I played 4 as an adult. Like I kind of missed that when it came out, and I kind of revisited it. And I was like, my time is, I guess, more valuable to me, you know? And to sit there while Otacon gives a PowerPoint presentation, I'm like, this isn't why I liked Metal Gear. Like I like the weird kind of inside, you know, the weird complexity of it, but I don't like it when it tells me that, you know?
Yeah, it's that weird thing.
I was really worried because I'm kind of afraid to ask this. Are there boss fights?
So there are, without getting too spoilery, there are some boss fights. There are certainly a couple of encounters that feel boss-ish. Like there may not be a life bar on the screen, but there are definitely encounters that are meant to test you in different ways than typical encounters do. I'm sorry if I'm being super vague.
No, I'm glad you are.
Most people prefer that.
Yeah, I'm trying not to.
You're making me
spoil
think of
certain
like
things.
the way you'd be running around the world in Dead Rising, and all of a sudden there'd be like a super freak that you'd have to take down.
Sure, that's not a terrible way to look at it at all. So yeah, there are those other traditional boss fights. There are.
I mean, have
couple.
there ever been traditional boss fights in Metal Gear?
Well, I mean, I guess instead of traditional, I mean formalized in the sense that hey, here's a life meter, a life bar, and your goal is now to deplete the life bar of this large and or particularly difficult enemy. Like yes, there are a couple of those in the game.
That's good. That's good to hear. Yeah, I guess I kind of had that sense with Ground Zeroes, because Ground Zeroes is kind of like a little chunk, kind of introducing you to the mechanics, and I was always sort of surprised that we didn't have a boss fight there, because that's something Kojima's so well known for. But then you think about it, and they were trying to reinvent kind of tactical espionage action in an open world environment, and like how does that translate? It's kind of hard to figure out how to have a scripted kind of just a dramatic, like just a pageantry heavy boss reveal when you're like able to choose your exact point of entry, you know?
Sure. I think almost every open world game is kind of not necessarily struggling with that right now, but they're not exactly dealing with it head on either, you know?
Yeah,
right.
It's a set piece will kind of break the freedom and yeah.
And that's the tough thing about it, and that's one of the things that Metal Gear does.
Except
really...
for Bloodborne, which totally nailed it.
That's one of the things that Metal Gear Solid 5 does really, really well is like they're like, all right, we're not going to give you a set piece. We're going to give you the building blocks of a set piece, and we're going to set a stage, and a set piece could happen.
Well, that's why I love the intro of your review. Like that frame around that mission is really interesting to me, because that sounds so fun.
Yeah,
like, that just sounds so exciting, and like discovering that for yourself and having your own unique experience with it is like the perfect game to me. Like I love that idea.
No, me too, and that's why I use that example, because and why I pinpointed in the next paragraph, not a single element of that story I told was a scripted event. The mission, the objective, it was literally go into this base, get this guy out. Nothing else. It was not, you got to make sure you disable the things so that you can call the chopper, so that you can do this. Make sure you go at night so that there's no. Go, get him, and use all the tools, use all your knowledge, use all your skill, use everything we've given you. Do it. That's what Metal Gear Solid 5 does.
That sounds so cool.
Do it.
Yep. That's what I loved about Far Cry. Like, that's kind of that's always been my favorite thing. Is like I guess I'm torn, because like I haven't really ever cared about the story in Far Cry, and I didn't like 4 a lot because it kind of beat you over the head with it. Whereas
it forced you to play it to really get back into the meat of the open world. And that was my main complaint with Far Cry also.
And like 3 was kind of almost generic, and it felt like it felt like Sega Genesis game characters.
Yeah.
Like it felt like Kid Chameleon's lost on this island of fruit. And he's got to rescue his girlfriend or whatever. And it was just like, I love the Outpost though. I love all the freedom there because it doesn't matter. Like you're making up your own story, and that's everything you're saying. But it's Metal Gear, where I do love the universe and I do love the characters and I do love the story, and I'm just like, there's no way I'm going to figure out how I feel about this without playing myself.
Well,
you know?
I've got good news for you. And I didn't get too much into this into my review because again, what I'm about to say isn't a spoiler, but I didn't want to necessarily touch on it too much in the review. So did you play Peace Walker? Have any of you played Peace Walker? You should totally do that, by the way. It's one of the best entries in the series.
I played a little. I know that was Greg would never shut up about how.
Yeah, Peace Walker is incredible, and Metal Gear Solid 5 is ostensibly current gen, just Peace Walker on steroids. That's mostly what it is. So what it shares very closely with Peace Walker is its kind of abnormal story structure. So you're going to reach a point in the game where you're going to finish all the main missions, and you will get an ending. The credits will roll for 25 minutes. You'll have a climactic boss fight. You know, the story is over. But then there's not just like a little tape you can find to learn more. There are actually more story. There's more cutscenes. There's more meat. If you dig deep enough and unlock more missions by meeting certain criteria. I don't want to spoil everything here. And that stuff, so until those credits, Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain, is a straightforward, in my opinion, tale of revenge. It is a dude who was in a coma for 9 years, coming out of that coma and saying, I'm going to find who did this to me and who did this to my comrades. I'm going to build up my strength, and I'm going to go kill him. Like that is what the core story is, and anyone can understand that.
Right.
If you are someone who loves the universe, you want to see the connections this makes to the other parts of the universe. Absolutely, dig your feet in deep.
That meat.
And for that meat, yeah.
Dig
deep
for the meat.
Yeah,
with your feet. Gotta get
with
in
your
with
feet,
your
and your
feet.
hands,
feet
and your
meat,
mouth.
dirty feet meat.
But dig in, take those extra challenges at the end, and go the extra mile, and you'll definitely get things that connect more to the greater universe.
Why are you still laughing?
And stuff.
I'm still laughing at the feet meat.
The feet meat. You picture a guy like sitting there with his feet.
I'm picturing a guy digging in the dirt for some meat with his feet.
How much meat would you eat with your feet in the street? Dig down.
Depends on the heat.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I would say about.
Do you believe you can find meat on the battlefield? I'm so sorry.
That's okay. So what was really tough about writing the review for me, two things that were tough. So one was, so the story I told at the beginning of that you brought up, the story that I told about getting into that base and then setting all the C4 and then blowing it and making my escape. I have at least, I mean, I've got 7-8 stories like that at least.
You have war stories.
Yeah, I have war stories.
Like that's.
And it was so hard for me to resist the urge to tell them in the review because, like, I'm writing this physically massive review that people are going to take a lot of time to read. I'm like, I don't have an extra 400 words to tell.
Well, you do right here,
story.
Vince. Let's hear one of your. Let's hear a war tale.
Okay, you want another war tale? Okay.
Regale us of tales of the battlefield, Vincent.
I will, sir. So. There was a mission where my goal, again, this is all going to be spoiler free, folks, so like don't worry, I'm not going to give away anything. So there was a mission where my goal was to take out this general, but we don't know where this general is. The only instruction I've been given is that perhaps if I can locate one of his lieutenants, who's set to meet him, I can tail him and find the location of the general. Okay.
What was his name? General Whereabouts?
General. You're pretty good at your job.
I'm so
Max.
sorry. I don't think that's true, but go on.
So I started the mission.
Damn it, Max.
I'm sorry.
I started the mission going to the area of operation, the last known location of this lieutenant, to try to find him, to tail him. So I did that. I made my way there and I found him, but he gets in a Jeep and he drives off, and I thought I was close enough to like kind of keep an eye on him, but I I lost him. I just lost him. His icon wasn't on my map anymore. I kind of had a general sense of the direction he'd gone, but I didn't know what he was doing or where he was.
Sense.
So I was like, well, I could restart, or I could just let it rock. I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna let it rock.
Yeah.
So I went to a couple of different outposts, and I'm like, I'm gonna interrogate guards from different outposts, and someone is going to know where this guy is, because that's almost always how the interrogation in this game works. You almost always get useful bits of information that are relevant to your mission when you interrogate people. But I went to 2 different outposts and interrogated several guards at each. No one had any information. And I'm like, well, my goal is to kill this guy. So, I mean, I don't generally do this in these games. I play stealthy, but I'm like, I just need to start killing everyone. And I'm just going to kill everyone in the mission area slowly and methodically until eventually there's going to be only the guy I need to kill left. So I start making my way from outpost to outpost within the mission area. There's like 3 or 4 outposts, and I'm just wiping out everyone, going and going and going. I go through all the outposts except for one, and I don't find this lieutenant, let alone this general. And I'm like, this is crazy. I have to have killed him by now. So I go to the last outpost, and I analyze the guy's face with my binoculars, and it tells me there he is. That's the lieutenant, not the general, the lieutenant. And I'm like, oh, all right, I'll just follow him. And I'm like, the general can't be too far, but he's surrounded by like 4 or 5 guys, and they're standing by a jeep. And I'm like, I don't know. His guy's not moving on. I think he's where he's gonna be. And I'm like, damn. So I'm like, well, I don't have a choice. I can't sneak past these guys. I got to open fire. So I just mow them all down, hoping that one of the guys standing with him is the general. So they all die, but none of them are the general. And then the person on my radio is like, well, good job. You killed the lieutenant. Now we don't have any idea where the general is. In every other game, that is game over. Sorry, you killed the dude you were supposed to tail to find out where you were supposed to go. Sorry, start over again.
You jumped in a hay pile. Your ancestors never hid in the bush. You were desynchronized.
You were desynchronized. Done. Right. Exactly.
Flip off your horse.
In this game, it was like, well, now you got to figure it out on your own. Like, scan the remaining faces of the dudes to try to find the general. So I'm going through the rest of this outpost trying to find it, and suddenly, after a certain amount of time, the guy on the radio says to me, he's like, hey, we received some emergency intel. There's a helicopter coming to an outpost southwest of you. That's got to be to pick up the guy. You've got to make your way over there. So I jump in the jeep of the guys that I just killed and start driving in that general direction. And then the person on the
general direction,
and then the person on the headset says to me that the chopper's there. You're screwing up. Like, he's gonna get away. Like, you need to do something. And as I get over like this hilltop, I can see in the distance in this outpost a helicopter is starting to take off, and I barrel towards it. I drive up kind of like this outcropping, so like I'm almost at the same height, and it's flying off, and I'm chasing it, and I'm at that point where I'm like, it's reaching like escape velocity. It's getting too fast, and like now the distance is like getting farther. I can't get any closer, and I'm getting to the edge of this little outcropping. So I'm like, what do I do? I'm like, I'm just gonna hop out. So I jump out while the Jeep is still moving. The Jeep goes over the edge and explodes. I pull out my rocket launcher, which thankfully I had equipped in for this mission, because I don't always. It's not a guided one, just a dumb RPG. And like I roll out of the Jeep. I take a firing stance, and I line up a shot, and I'm just like, I try to lead him. He's moving a little bit this way. He's way out in the distance. I fire. Yes, and I hear the wow, and the copter starts spinning out of control, and he's literally outside of the mission area. Like, he's technically escaped, but the chopper goes down and explodes. Mission complete.
Holy shit.
Get yourself out of there.
That is so good.
That is awesome.
It was like this game.
It was
excited.
It was like a movie.
Oh
It was like a movie operation. It was like something that happens in a movie. Like that scene of me chasing the helicopter on a Jeep and then just like jumping out of the Jeep while it's still moving. And
yeah, that is like the back end of a Nick Nolte movie, basically.
And no one who plays there might be no one else who plays that mission who has that happen that way.
Yeah.
I mean,
like,
that's
someone else could have not lost the lieutenant and just followed the lieutenant and found out where the general was.
I cannot wait.
What do we call that? We call it emergent gameplay.
Yeah.
You know, like that's.
Yep.
I feel like that's what Kojima's always kind of been pushing at, but it's sort of just like he's kind of waiting his time until this is a thing, and now it's like he always makes it like you said something in your closing statements. The review is it doesn't just treat the player intelligently, but it expects you like it expects you to fight back. You know?
Which sounds
nailed
perfect.
it.
Like,
Yeah.
and that's my thing. Like, I've never beaten a Metal Gear game, and God, I especially didn't even get into 4 because I was so immediately like, I cannot keep up with this. But like, this game finally hooks me. Like, everything I see about it, everything with like Mother Base and all of that. But now hearing stories like this, like, I'm so on board.
Yeah.
I was really worried that like it was gonna beat you over the head with the story and the lore and everything. And
No.
everyone's really sad that David Hayter got phased out for Kiefer Sutherland, but I feel like this is, for all intents and purposes, it sounds like kind of a new game. It sounds like this is the return to form. This is a game about a guy out for revenge in 80s Afghanistan. Like this is. Yeah,
and I'm glad that you brought up the point again, like the one that I made at the end of the review, because I had one of those moments as like a writer where I'm just like, you write like 2,000 words and you're lost in all these like very specific points that you wanted to make, and you're struggling to find the way to sum up why this game just got into your head and into your heart, and like, yeah, that was it. Like, I'm so, on a personal note, I'm like, as far as like where video games are, accessibility is great. It is, and like. We want more people to play games, but I'm tired of like the over abstraction of everything. Like where there's just this very loose connection, almost non-connection between like my inputs and what's going on. And it's always like, well, we don't think people are smart enough to set up an ambush themselves. So we've got to give them a waypoint. This is where you go. Just wait here. And then we've got to stop the vehicle for them, because they're not going to figure out a way to stop it. This is how you do it. You go to this point, you wait for the thing, and then you shoot the thing.
Hand holding.
Right. I don't. That's fine. I don't want that, and I don't need that. And not only do I not need that, but like I want a game where it knows I don't need that, and it gives me the tools to really set up an ambush, where I can be like, I'm going to find an intel document that shows the deployment route for my target. Then I'm going to airdrop in the right tools for the job. Then I'm going to pick the right space to do it. And then I'm going to set them all up, and I'm going to wait. And then I'm going to execute my plan. Like, it's just like I said in the review. Like, I don't just want it to respect my intelligence. I want my intelligence to be demanded. I want it to be an expectation.
And challenged.
Yeah.
and also just creativity. You're not just being like, oh, just go to point A,
Right.
thing.
Right.
I think the difference between challenge and difficulty is worth looking at,
Right, absolutely.
Like, is this just you've got a certain amount of resources to manage, or is it a matter of using those resources to actually do something?
And that's exactly it. Like, there's nothing mechanically in the game that's challenging. Like, it's not hard to aim. It's not hard to control, Snake. It's not like in terms of raw mechanics of what you're doing, it's any more difficult than any other action game.
Yeah.
It's that you actually have to use your brain to figure out which tools are the right ones for the job. And there isn't one answer to that question. There's a ton of different answers. And I can't think of so many sandbox games give you all this freedom, give you you can do whatever you want, but not a lot of what you want to do is actually useful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then there's the fact that, like, even in something like GTA, the missions are fairly scripted in terms of what you're supposed to do, and then you finish them, and there's a checklist of like, did you do this? Did you do this? Like you blew up a chopper that escaped. That's nuts. You kind of won on your own terms there.
Yeah, and the game didn't need to set any of that up. And I just love the fact that it's also a testament to the design, though, of the levels and of the overall gameplay, that like doing that, giving people a stage and then giving them the tools and then being like, make your own set piece. It's not only trusting the player, but there's a design. So if that game is designed with any less precision, because that's the thing, it has to be precisely designed, but that precision has to be invisible.
Right.
Like, you have to give people the impression and actually some of the freedom to really make decisions. And when you do that, you don't know if it's going to work out in a way that's actually interesting. So the fact that they give you that much freedom and it consistently ends up being interesting, there's like this hand of a creator behind all of that, but it's only a very sleight of hand.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's only the very mildest of, just make sure that there's that most of what can happen will be enjoyable.
It's a testament to the structure of the way, or the architecture of the game, basically.
Yeah,
so they can be like, we're going to leave all the pets at home today, and they're not going to break out or eat the poison. They're going to just run around this house and have a good time.
It's an act of trust from the developer to the player, but it's also like an exercise in like, excellent, well thought out design.
Now I got a question. There's been a lot of talk about Kojima's role in this and this kind of the future of the Metal Gear franchise under Konami's hands, whatever. What does this feel like final? Does this have a sense of kind of like gravity to it that this might be just like, well, that's it, because Kojima's been saying this is his last Metal Gear game since 2, I think.
So to parry onto that, Nathan Daniel Hall says, Beyond, do you think Metal Gear Solid 5 will be the last Metal Gear, or will they make a mobile-like game to make money? Is this it? Mobile game's a weird angle because they made one of those already for 4, and it was not very great. It was like a point-and-drag shooting game.
Based on the overall trajectory of Konami, the company, and the way the growing trend that we've seen, sadly, over the last couple of years, with developers starting to alienate their golden geese.
Yeah,
I think this is it.
Well, hold on. Let's ask it 2 different ways then, right? Aside from ignoring Konami, ignoring the finances, ignoring the industry, just story-wise,
does
it seem like it's
is there a finality to this?
So the easy answer is no, because the fact of the matter is that the interesting thing about the Phantom Pain is that it's actually smack dab in the middle of the timeline. So there's really no way for it to be like, well, this is the end. This is it. Like Metal Gear Solid 4, whether Kojima had been saying it was going to be his last Metal Gear or not, it certainly felt like the last one, because it was literally about tying up every loose end, every unanswered question, and sending off a hero into the ether. That's what Metal Gear Solid 4 is all about. Whereas Phantom Pain is actually about it's in a way it's about beginnings. Like Big Boss is Les Enfants Terribles is all based on his genetics.
Yeah,
he is the origin point.
It's like the Metal Gear franchise. If you're playing them chronologically in terms of release, it's like catching the end of a movie on TNT and then they show it immediately again afterwards. And it kind of continues.
Right.
So in that sense, it doesn't feel final in terms of the story. While it's certainly it is setting a light on a piece of on kind of what's been a blind spot in the series lore, which is like the connective tissue between 3 and the old guard and like Metal Gear and the new guard. Big Boss is the origin point, like I said, of the games in a lot of ways, and 5 is very much a story about like him becoming the big boss that we all know he becomes.
Right. That's good to hear.
Other question, like this is all totally rampant speculation here, but like, what's going to happen to that engine? Because that engine is clearly like a monster. The fact that this game is running on last gen as well as current
Konami's
gen.
turning it into the world's most powerful pachinko machine.
It's a good
procedurally generated pachinkos in an open world pachinko parlor.
You joke, but they are using it for PES, right?
Oh, really?
I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I believe Pro Evolution Soccer uses some derivation of the Fox engine.
Sure, that wouldn't
I could be wrong.
surprise me.
Everyone will tell me if I'm wrong, but I believe that's true.
And I'm with you in the sense that I haven't done a lot of reading on what the logistics of that are. I mean, I would certainly imagine that Konami retains ownership of that because they fronted all the money to develop it. If I'm them, I mean, I do
farm it out.
You farm it out. Exactly.
Farm it out.
That's what you do.
It would be so cool
That's
to see.
You farm it out.
Like if we still haven't really heard a straight answer about any of this stuff, but if Kojima is in fact leaving to go do his own thing, how cool would it be if he licensed the engine he helped develop and then pulled together the people he wanted to work with and was working?
Well, that's true. Like, he is in a situation where he could, if they do that, then he would be in a scenario, an odd scenario where he could use the software he created, even though he left the company that he created it at.
Right.
Though it would be kind of a crappy situation in the sense that he'd be paying to use something that he made.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which would be unfortunate. And in any case, I mean, I don't know the specifics of this, but I'm going to guess that Konami has complete ownership of that IP. Like, there's nothing he could do.
Oh yeah, no.
In the Metal Gear universe after leaving without their okay. And given how things have gone, I can't imagine he'd ever get it.
But
He
even
could
if
like
it's
Mighty Number 9 it or something.
Yeah.
Just like a
Right.
very similar.
That's
yeah.
what I was getting at. Yeah.
Maybe he's sick of Metal Gear too. Like
He has to be.
Yeah.
He has to be.
He probably wants to make something really weird.
Well, in lieu of that, I mean, so we don't know when the next, what the next Kojima game is, what the next Metal Gear game is, what the next Konami, whatever this engine is game. how long is it going to really take to dig around in this game? Because people always do this. They go, well, what's next? And it's like, well, this thing isn't even out yet. So say I got into this game and I want to really just get everything, and not just the meat feet, but just like really just running around playing this game. Like, is this like a GTA 5?
You said 30 to 60 hours, yeah?
So...
What was your playtime for your review?
My playtime for my review overall, I put about 60 hours into it.
Wow.
Yeah, I put about 60 hours into it.
Wow.
That said, a lot of that time was spent testing the limits of the systems and, trying curiosity, me going, well, I could just go right to the objective point, but let me see how rewarding it is for me to not do that, and finding a lot of reward in doing things my way and in doing things differently. So if you are someone who is looking to get through the content, not as fast as possible, like you're rushing, but like if you're like, I want to stay quote unquote on mission and get things done in the most efficient way possible, you can probably roll the credits in about 30 to 40 hours.
That's still pretty substantial.
That's just focused on mission.
30, and I'm sure there'll be speedrunners who make me eat those words. I'm sure there'll be people who blow through it in 20 or 15 or less, maybe. But I mean, is this like? I need to impress upon people, this is many times the size of your typical Metal Gear, which, typical Metal Gear, you can blow through the story, even not like running and speeding, in like 10 hours.
Yeah, 10 hours.
You know what I mean? This is not that.
That is an insane amount of content.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And then, of course, there's online.
Yeah, I was going to say, so that's the initial set of missions, I would say. Then there's a set of missions beyond that.
Beyond.
There's a set of missions beyond that are tied to getting, a deeper look into the story. And then there's 150 side ops. And then there's forward operating base, which forward operating base, like in the short version on forward operating base, not to outline exactly everything it does, but basically you're like, oh, I did all the missions, I did all the story, no reason for me to go out back into that sandbox anymore. It's like, well, no, because forward operating base, in order to do it, it requires all the same resources that your mother base requires. So, fuel, different kinds of metals, different kinds of soldiers, different kinds of specialists. It requires all those same things. So it's like, if you plan on keeping up with the Joneses and forward operating base, you're going to need to go back out into that sandbox and raid outposts and capture more guys.
So isn't it insane that this game is coming out within a few weeks or months of Fallout, which is basically another massively open world game where you can build your base at home and. Mm-hmm. There's weird animals everywhere.
A lot of interesting parallels we've drawn here.
Yes, the list ran out by the end.
Okay. No, so to me, like what I find interesting about that, and what I've been observing, I think I've been observing it a lot because just the normal line of like the reviews I've done has kind of been following this for the last year now, is that more and more open world is becoming just. It's just becoming a lot more common, I guess, is the easiest way to say it.
Right.
I don't think there's a person alive who played Grand Theft Auto 3 for the first time and thought this wasn't the future of all games.
Sure.
Like that it wasn't sure, while that was an exception at the time, we all imagined like this will be what games become. They'll become open places. Like we look at open world as a genre still right now, instead of like a structure, or a way you make a game. But I mean, more and more people want more choice and more freedom, and that just lends itself to an open world. So it's like I've reviewed and seen more open world games and seen more often that creators of like well-established franchises more and more are like, yeah, so in our open world, or in a wide open world where, like, what is it, was it the new, not the new Rainbow Six, but the new Ghost
Recon?
Yeah, the new Ghost Recon. They wanted to structure that way. The last Hitman was structured more that way.
Yeah.
More and more just even games that you consider action games are now becoming sandboxes or open world games.
And in addition to that, there's also the level of creativity that's involved. We've seen. I think it's just kind of understanding that figuring out how to make stuff using a computer, for lack of a better word, is kind of like kind of just standard at this point. That's how we all. That's how we interact with things. Whether it's rearranging your icons on your phone or something, or Photoshop or coding or anything. It's just like the fact is there's a generation of kids that have grown up with Minecraft, and like there's modding and there's level designing.
Yeah,
it was really weird. I was I was in the office and one of the Wikis guys was playing Metal Gear, and I was looking at him like, this looks like, just kind of comparing this to the original Metal Gear and being like, holy crap, we've come so far. And then I walk over and Jose and Brian are playing Super Mario Maker, and I'm like, well, we really have, because it's like you can go to the other end of the spectrum in terms of like technical prowess and just like and what the game looks like and how it plays, or you can kind of keep it exactly the same but just tear the walls off in terms of what can be done with
and
it.
let people play however they want, which I think is fascinating, and it's also very triumphant that we're getting that movement sort of on the tail end of what I feel was something you alluded to a little while ago, which is kind of like that very hand-holdy, like, experience, or the kind of driven, the first person, like the way a lot of, lack of a better game, the way a lot of Call of Duty single players sort of unfold for people is run, set piece, run, right? And then you look at Metal Gear, and you look at Mario Maker, you look at Minecraft, and you look at these games that are sort of like stripping that away and saying like, no, go in there and draw diagonals everywhere, Go anywhere you want. There's paths and tunnels everywhere. It's really good to see that, because I feel like we got a lot of on-rails stuff in the last gen, a lot of sort of like guided experiences, and a lot of sort of press A to win type of thing. So it's really cool to see this kind of comeback, because it A is good for gamers, and B, it bodes well for human beings alive now, the people making games have a little faith that the children of tomorrow aren't total idiots.
Right. No, it's a logical progression of things. I mean, when you were talking about how far we've come to look at what Metal Gear was and what Metal Gear is now, I mean, like Metal Gear, the original Metal Gear on NES, or MSX, is like, it's Pac-Man. It's
100% Pac-Man.
It's literally
Pac-Man with broken English.
Right.
I feel asleep.
Yeah, right.
It's the shoot gunner.
It's Pac-Man. There are not
Somebody marry the truck.
It was a step forward at the time, but
Not a real line of dialogue.
It was a step forward.
I don't care.
I want to date Wolf. Sorry.
That's okay.
Big Box is back again.
No, but it's a step forward at the time.
Help me eat this tree. Sorry, okay.
It's a step forward at the time, but I mean, there's not a whole lot of decisions to make.
Yeah.
And then you look at Metal Gear Solid, and there's like way more decisions to make in that than you have to make in the original Metal Gear. And then this is like we in a lot of ways game development has gone like whoa, let's not make so many decisions. Let's not let people make so many decisions. We can't do that.
Right.
And then Metal Gear is like, no, we can and we will. And like that's the way forward, is to let people make more decisions, because at the end of the day, like the phrase I use more than any other when I'm describing to someone why a game is interesting or why it's not is, how often do I get to make interesting decisions?
Yes.
That's what I want to know. And Metal Gear lets me make interesting decisions in ways that I never thought a game would allow me to make.
Which is great, because people always said Metal Gear is like a movie. You sit down and you watch a bunch of cutscenes and stuff like that. And now it seems like that's moved away from that.
Well, now you get to choose what kind of movie it is. You want to be the kind of movie where you blow
right.
up a truck, or
Or
the
a
kind of movie
Western.
where you steal a sheep and
Or
bring it back
Data
to your
Wolf.
home.
I have one more question for you, and it's kind of an ugly one, but
It's cool.
last gen.
Uh-huh.
There's a version of this game coming to last gen systems. What is it? Where is it? Have you seen it? Have you played it?
No, I haven't seen it or played it yet, which is, that probably sounds worse than it is. Like, oh, Konami's hiding. Honestly, it's sad to say, but like that's kind of become par for the course with most major developers and publishers at this point. Like,
It's an afterthought.
If they're putting in the time, the effort, and the resources to create this like really wonderful looking version of the game, that's the version they want people to see as like the
their
definitive
product to
version.
look good. And if they go to Microsoft and Sony and they say, "Hey, we're putting out a game on both your consoles," I bet you the companies go, "Can you maybe push the one that's the new one that people don't already all have?"
Yeah, I mean, car commercials all have the decked out version of the car, so it's not like it's this super dishonest
They're not
thing.
like, come and get this 2012 Subaru.
That said, we have seen bits and pieces
full of rats.
of the last gen version.
Yeah.
It's half the resolution and the frame rate, but it still looks really impressive.
But otherwise, it like fundamentally, do you see it working? Are there like?
Yeah, I mean, like, so based on what the last gen version of Ground Zeroes was, I mean, yeah, I don't see any reason to assume that it wouldn't have all those mechanics. But then again, the other thing is that The only thing I'll dial back on that maybe, and this is just me speculating, is that as you put more and more, as the game needs to be aware of and track more things at a time, and believe me, the game has to in these sandboxes has to track a lot of different things, a lot of different like AI states, and a lot of how you left certain things in different parts of the map. That may become a memory problem.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if maybe the last gen versions, you'll notice that like certain things that you did in a level earlier, maybe if you go back, it's not like that anymore, or maybe the AI isn't as sophisticated.
Okay.
Things like that. This is me speculating.
The dog isn't animated. There's certain
Maybe.
things that just aren't animated.
Maybe
the wheels
maybe-
and cars don't actually move. They're just tweening across the land.
Maybe the dog is just like a cardboard cutout of a dog on wheels. It's just kind of like, I don't know.
I would prefer that.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because we think about these things like I think about it like it was like when the Wii got ports of next gen games. It's really not. It's not gonna be that bad.
Yep.
Where they're like, there's 3 characters on screen and it's in standard definition.
Yeah, that was pretty rugged.
Yeah.
All right, so we've talked about Metal Gear all of this episode because
Yep.
it's a real big game to talk about it. We got some rapid fire questions from the Facebook group.
Yeah, that's right. Real quick, I wanted to give a quick plug for the PlayStation Plus lineup, which is pretty awesome
yeah.
this month. Do you know what's in there, Goldfarb?
Nope, not on the top of my head.
Well, you put a URL on a page, but you can't click a piece of paper.
I didn't. paste
It's
it
not
in.
working. I'm trying to
I
open
was.
this.
I'm looking. Stall.
So we
stall.
got Grow Home that won the People's Choice Award, whatever
nice.
it's called. We also we're getting Twisted Metal for PS3.
Yeah, and I wanted to give a shout out to a special one in there called Zeo Drifter, which is actually multi-platform, so it's cross-buy. And I did the closing credits to that game. So when you beat that game, it plays a song and says my name, which was really surreal. Because actually, I would have beaten that game anyway. And I
The song
actually
just like Brian Altano.
thanks for winning this game. No, it's a Metroidvania style, kind of 8-bit, 16-bit action platforming game, and it's free if you have PlayStation Plus.
it's
So
pretty
go
cool.
check that out.
Yeah, and
pretty
on
cool.
top of that, Super Time vs. Ultra, where you can play as Shuhei Yoshida, friend of the show.
Yep.
Teslagrad, and for Vita, you get La Mulana EX.
Oh yeah, which should sit well with Splunky fans. That's one of the games that.
La
kind of-
Mulana's really
Yeah.
good. Yep.
So yeah, I went in the Podcast Beyond Facebook group, and that group is blown up. By the way, we are very close to 10,000 members over there. And I asked for some quick questions for a little segment we call Rapid Fire. I already asked the first one from Nathan Daniel Hall about the next Metal Gear game. I think we covered off on that one. Let's get a little more personal and a lot more serious. Tommy Ratliff, I don't know if that's supposed to be Ratcliffe or his name's actually Ratliff, says, "What and where was the worst pizza you ever ate?" Now,
French
Vince,
fries in Vietnam.
French fries pizza
Yeah, went to a pizza restaurant in Vietnam.
called French fries?
No, they had I don't know what the place was called, but they had a lot of real shady looking pizza places. There was one called Pizza Hug. There was
Pizza
one
Hug?
Pizza Hug. Yeah, they had Pizza
I
Hug.
want a pizza hug.
We went there and they had
Did
like,
it look like Pizza Hut?
it looked like a ski shop, like a chalet. Yeah, they had a thing like one of them was like pepperoni, and then it was like potato, and we're like, what? And they bring us this pizza. It's just a regular cheese pizza that just has French fries
Just
on top
thrown
of
on it?
just sitting right on there.
That's really tragic.
Yeah.
Vince, you're from the East Coast.
Yep.
You know good pizza.
Yep.
And you travel a lot for this job. What is the worst? What and where was the worst pizza you ever ate?
It was right here in San Francisco.
Really?
Believe it or not. And there's not to say there isn't some good pizza here, because
Right,
there is. You
right.
can, and you can find
Sure,
it.
sure. I've made a sort of conquest of that in the last few years.
And I want to be fair in saying that. So it was as here at the IGN office when I was a freelancer, and I came in to do a video review for something. I can't remember what it was. And after we got finished recording, I think Colin, who was still here at the time, was like, "Hey man, you want some pizza? You hungry? Like I think there's some left over. Greg had ordered Pachi's like Greg always did.
Yep.
And I guess it was like probably an hour old and had just been sitting there. And it was the thin crust Pachi's, not like the deep dish, which is like the deep dish is pretty decent, but like their thin crust like is not the greatest.
Well, so
I like.
They have a 0-0 crust, but something I've learned with Pachi's, first of all,
It also
It's
didn't
a-
used to
it's
be
a
0-0.
pizza, not a pair of
when you were
pants.
doing
Yeah.
that, they used to have like super thin, and deep dish, and then they introduced 0-0, which is like the combination. So now it's just either
Right.
0-0 or deep dish, and 0-0 is actually pretty good. And I think that's why they did it, because
it's the
the
type of
super
flour
thin
they
was
use.
really bad.
Yeah.
Because I had it was the thin, and it had been sitting there for like probably
The thing
an
about
hour,
the
and the
thing about the
combination
pizza,
of those things just made me. I was like, what even is this?
magically transforms the second it's cooled down into like some. It basically turns into it's like Cinderella, where it's like it hits midnight and it's like your car is a pumpkin and your driver is a mouse. You're like, what are you doing? All right, Miranda Lynn.
Cool. I didn't want to.
I just want to keep it moving. What's your
Great.
what's your
No, it's
favorite
fine.
pizza?
No, don't worry about it.
Tell me about your
It's
pizza.
good. We'll move on. We'll move on.
No, now we got to hear about it. You
No,
big
it's fine.
baby.
No, it's great. Keep going.
No, now we got to hear about it.
Look, Andrew, I'm your friend.
Yeah, I'm your
and
friend
I care
too.
about you.
Maybe I'll tell you
And
later about my favorite.
I
pizza.
would like to know.
No, why
about
don't you
your
tell us
favorite
on the
pizza.
world's biggest PlayStation podcast, Podcast Beyond, right here on IGN.com.
I was gonna say that place on 3rd near McDonald's that we don't like.
Oh,
that Jack used to
SBC?
go to. Yeah, that place is awful.
Yeah, that place is awful, and it's very overpriced.
real bad.
And it's surrounded by homeless people that pee
It is.
into their own
Yep,
hands.
Yep.
Miranda Lynn Pomar says, "What's your favorite horror game?
I mean,
Horror video games,
seriously,
not like
seriously.
trap your friends in a closet for a month."
I'm not
Laundry
a,
ghosts.
I'm not a horror guy at all, but like
Yeah.
I loved PT a lot. Like I
Chief
really,
Chief.
really, really liked PT. I was
Yeah.
excited for it.
Yeah,
And
I think it
I'm-
was a great
That's
concept.
like the only. Like I'm just not into games like that at all, but I really had fun with it, and I'm super bummed about that. So seriously, it's that.
I
It's weird.
really love, and it doesn't become a horror game after this, but I really love the opening town segments in Resident Evil 4. The first time, like when you first hear that chainsaw guy, when you're killing people throughout the town and they're yelling at you in Spanish, and you don't understand what's going on, all of a sudden you hear, and you turn around and this guy with a bag on his head is cutting your head in half.
Yeah.
Terrifying to me. It turns into a very action game after that.
Sure.
But yeah, they had some really good moments early on. Max?
I'm a big weenie, so I don't.
You
know.
don't like horror stuff, right?
Not really. I like monsters.
I don't really either.
I like campy horror stuff. I'm actually really curious about Until Dawn because that seems like a super fun junk food.
Seems like it would be right up your alley.
Like
yeah.
I want to have a party and play that. I want to have a Marty party, play that with Marty.
Vince?
We should all be there.
For me, I would say the horror game that's both scared me the most, made me jump the most, and also gave me like the most fun gameplay experience. It's probably the original Dead Space.
Yeah, that was a great one.
That's
a great
probably the
one.
original Dead Space.
Nikki Powell says, "What's up, Nikki? What game will you always go back to? It doesn't have to be your favorite, but your go to. I need to play something entertaining that makes me feel good. Game. Your comfort food, if you will.
Comfort food game is Doom 2.
Doom 2.
I boot Doom 2 up once a month at least.
Yeah.
To just like I just need to fire a gun.
That's almost
Glad you're doing it in June.
that's almost not worrisome.
that's
mine's
my game.
probably probably Super Mario 64 is the one where I'm just like,
Okay.
I can really any of the Mario games are sort of like I know these things front to back. I don't have to worry about missing any cutscenes or dying. I'm like, it's
Sure.
all fine. It's just something I can go and sit down and play and feel totally good afterwards because I know I can beat it.
For me, like on a daily or weekly basis, if I'm just like, oh, I have like half an hour to kill or whatever, I'll jump into Spelunky because it's so awesome to just grind in. In terms of like big picture things I revisit a lot, try and play Earthbound once a year. Mario 64 is a great one.
Yeah.
Ocarina of Time, just like a lot of like, especially stuff that's on 3DS now. Like I really liked. Man, I had nothing to play on like a long trip recently, and I was like, I'm just gonna do a run through of Star Fox 64, and I played it on 3DS, and I just like did like a full run through all the way to the end. And I was like,
love
it takes
Star
like an
Fox
hour and a half,
64.
and it's
Yeah.
just like a nice thing to revisit.
Yeah.
Mine's probably either Link to the Past. I've played that a lot of times. I love
Yeah.
that game. I'll start the game and just run around and then be like, I don't know, then it won't finish the file or whatever.
Yeah.
But also Proteus. Like I know
Right.
that's kind of not really.
awesome, man. I didn't
Yeah.
know you were into Proteus.
I love that. I almost don't consider it a game in that when I'm tired of work-related game stuff, I'll jump in that because it feels like exploring a painting.
yeah. Yeah.
It's wonderfully relaxing. You can kill it in half an hour, 10
Yep.
minutes, whatever.
Do you want to make fun of me?
Sure.
Well,
Never.
let me give you some information. Let me give you some ammunition
Remember
to
that
do
time you
that
fell
with.
asleep at your desk?
That was pretty
Everyone
good.
loves bringing
I
that
still
up.
have that photo. I'll put that in the Beyond Facebook
Do
group.
it. Do
Can
it.
I? Okay.
Yeah, go for it. I don't care. No, so Proteus was part of our indie Vita Indie Week that I did, where I was like basically releasing previews of like Vita indie games and PS4 indie games like every day for the week. And the last one was a Let's Play of Proteus. And I want you to imagine me solo trying to make an entertaining let's play out of it. And like instead of being a jokester, because I'm not a people know like I'm not generally like on my own a jokester. I'm not like that's not my natural state. I'm an analyzer.
No, you made that.
I'm an information guy.
You made that great joke when you met me about corpses.
So go watch that let's play, and I swear to God, like especially towards the end, I'm just like Bob Ross, just being like, just let the colors flow, take it in, just. Isn't that nice? Like I don't know, I'm so like struck out at the end.
It's a super relaxing game.
I love it, but like I sound so preposterous trying to like make it like make a commentary on that game for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
IGN.com, go find it.
Go find it.
We're gonna wrap things up.
It's the problem with our lives is all the things we do get recorded and published in places where people can
So we need
find
Snapchat in our lives.
Yep.
So it all disappears. Yeah, we're gonna be at PAX. If you see us, come say hi. Sorry for a little bit scatterbrained. We wanted to talk about Metal Gear, and so we're gonna do. I'm really tired right now. I just completely crashed. Anyway, I'm Max Scoville. You can find me on Twitter, Max Scoville. You can find Andrew Goldfarb on Twitter, Garfep. You can find Brian on Twitter, Agent Bizzle.
That's right.
You can find Vince at Vincognito.
That's right.
I love that one. It's perfect for the guy who reviews Metal Gear.
And if
It used to be some confusing thing. We made you change it.
Oh, you made me change it specifically before you left us for a while. But like, you.
I was so catty.
It was like
day.
It was like day 3, and you're like Vince.
Yeah, that was literally your action item on day 3 for me.
You were like, Vince, you need to do something about this.
What was it?
It was WK_VGAMS.
Yeah, that was
Yeah, totally.
One day,
in all caps.
One day I will explain where it came from.
Okay.
It was the worst idea
tuned.
ever.
All right.
If you can't make it to PAX and you want to interact with us, Max and I do a little show called Up at Noon Live every Thursday at noon Pacific time, which apparently is not PST. I've been writing noon PST.
No.
But it's not.
To be safe, always just write PT.
So what is PST?
Because there's Pacific Daylight Time, Pacific Standard Time.
Yeah.
Like if we're in Daylight Savings Time, it's PDT.
Get it together.
Depends whether or not Ben
world
Franklin and his
sucks.
old
Get
it
father
together
Bowser.
time.
Yeah,
Right. Just write PT. Pacific
it
Time.
out.
I will now.
You can just
Yeah,
write. You can write Pacific.
Yep. Or Pacific, exactly.
It's a lot of words. It's a lot
And you
of
could
words.
say you can make a good mnemonic device because Pacific is where
Either way.
the palm trees
If-
and the board shorts.
if
and
you'd
the
like to hear
bikini
us-
ladies with the volleyballs all hanging out.
All of those things. If you'd like to hear us talk about dumb things like that and watch me get angry over even dumber things like that, check us out. We're on IGN, YouTube, and Twitch, noon Pacific time with no S. And you can tweet at us and talk to us, and we'll do a fun live show together.
Yeah,
So
let's have a nice time.
let's hang out.
On that note, beyond.
Beyond! Beyond!
Beyond!
Beyond!
Beyond!
Beyond!
Beyond!
Stop it! Beyond!